When I received the Floureon 250 racer from GearBest, I knew that it had great potential. It has all of the right ingredients for a good flyer: 2204 2300 kV motors, 20 amp ESCs, and a Naze 32 flight controller. Out of the box, they have not taken advantage of this, and while it does fly okay, it needs to fly better. Today I'm going to show you how to install Betaflight on it, and what PIDs work best for me. Why would you use Betaflight? Well, essentially, the settings are the same, but the PIDs have been more finely tuned to get you a better flying quad. I find it much easier to tune in Betaflight, and I believe I've gotten better results than CleanFlight, so that is the reason for my decision. To turn this ready-to-fly beginner model into a race contender, first of all, we need to start off in CleanFlight. Hopefully you followed my first video in setting up the failsafe correctly. We will be totally erasing the data on the Naze board in order to flash Betaflight, so we want to back up all of the Floureon's current settings. To do that, you log into CleanFlight and press on the Backup Settings button. This will save to a text file on your computer. It used to be that to install Betaflight you would use the CleanFlight configurator to do so. It is now highly recommended that you don't do that. Betaflight now has its own app in the Chrome store. If you try to install the raw Betaflight files through the CleanFlight configurator, it will appear like it's working, but some strange things might happen. For example, I managed to brick the Naze 32 board and needed to short the bootloader to get it back. The ESCs kept getting bricked and would not boot correctly. I was not getting the second beep on startup. And lastly, the One-Shot 125 button will appear to turn itself on automatically when you save, making it impossible to turn off. So in short, use the Betaflight configurator now using Betaflight firmware. Plug the quad into the computer via its USB port, navigate to the firmware tab, ensure that the full chip erase is selected and the baud rate is set manually to 256. Select your board type at the top. This one is the Naze 32, and you can now select the version of Betaflight that you want to install. At the time that I made this video, the latest version was 2.9, however I believe version 3 is now out. Scroll down and select Flash Firmware Online, and it will download the firmware ready for flashing. Then select Flash Local Firmware. It will erase the current CleanFlight firmware and then load Betaflight. This takes some time and the software will also verify that it has worked correctly. Once you have done that, you can connect to Betaflight, and on the first page we can then load the saved settings from CleanFlight. Everything will now be restored, and the only thing that I need to mess around with is my PIDs. The numbers look different in Betaflight compared to CleanFlight. One thing that is cool in the Betaflight configurator is that you can turn on your transmitter and you can preview your rates. If only we could do the same for our PIDs. A PID simulator would be awesome, but really impossible to make. So here are my PIDs. These are tuned only for acro mode. I'm not using level or horizon. I've been having trouble getting good results out of horizon and level mode with the latest incarnations of Betaflight. Anyway, to get a good acro tune, I have had to pump up the D and the P value quite considerably. You can copy my PIDs here to give you a good start. However, I'm using my Foxeer Legend 1 cam here, so a different camera would require different PIDs if it weighed differently. I've also turned air mode on in the modes tab to coincide with my arming switch. Any change that you make in Betaflight, you need to save each individual page, otherwise it won't save, to check that your tabs have been kept to the desired figures before you disconnect and go to fly. Speaking of flying, let's go and do that and see how this tuning has improved the quadcopter. So it's a bit of a bumpy takeoff, but you'll soon see as I do a punch out and go in for a roll that it is so much more locked in than the clip at the start of this video, which has the stock CleanFlight firmware and PID settings. I am now going to do a series of rolls and backflips to check that out, and we're looking for any wobble on the horizon. There's a little bit of a wobble there, and it's usually when it's recovering from a dive or a lot of altitude loss, which I do get with my KISS flight controller anyway, so I'm not too fussed about that. So I'm doing some rolls here, just both directions, and forward flips, back flips, point down to the ground and look to see if the ground wobbles. And I have to say, I'm pretty happy with this tune. It goes to show you that you can take these beginner 250 racers and tune them and get really nice results out of it. To do those 4-point rolls, you need it to be really locked in because you are relying on the fact that the quad is hesitating to perform the maneuver. So yeah, really happy with how this one has turned out with the tune. So what is next? Well, the manual said that this quadcopter can take a 4S, so that is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm also going to add my HQ 3-leaf props and see if it can handle that as well. And I'm going to change the camera angle slightly. So I'm going to really try and turn this one into a proper racer that could potentially compete with the ZMR sort of type frame. So I'm doing some flips, some rollovers, trying to confuse this flight controller, and I'm really happy with it. So you are absolutely welcome to use these PID settings. You have to remember that I am using the Foxeer Legend 1 camera, so it is tuned with that in mind. And I just go to do a little bit of a hover just to see how it manages with low throttle, and it's fine. It's really good. It does feel locked in like my ZMR and my KISS alien frame, so really pleased with it. And this is with a 3S, and there is a lot of power there still. Sure, it's not going to compare to a 4S quad, but you're still going to have a lot of fun with it. And if you are a beginner and want to get used to flying acro, you can use this tune and hopefully it will get you somewhere. So I'm just doing some more flips and rolls, probably not that enjoyable to watch, but I'm just looking to see if there's anything else that I can do with this tune, and I don't think there is. The only thing is to try that 4-cell battery next, so watch out for that. So I hope you enjoyed this video on how I have tuned my Floureon 250 Racer. As always, thanks so much for watching. You can follow me on Instagram at AndyRC_channel for more content. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.